Well, welcome to summer, everybody. It's exciting as we enter into June. And summer for me always feels like just like the kid getting off of school for the summer break, and summer break is just like, oh, we get to play all summer long. And even as adult, I don't get the summers off, but I do feel that energy still all around when I see lots of people going on fun vacations or going to summer camps, kids just kind of getting into this like playfulness, and it's pretty infectious, I think. But I wanted to just kind of introduce us. I'm Amanda, joined by Patrick and Megan. This month on the path, we're going to be talking about embodiment, and a big part of that is playfulness. And you guys just actually got back from a vacation, so I'm kind of curious, kind of how did you sense any of this embodiment, this kind of slower pace, or maybe even like a inner child like playfulness come out when you were out of town?
Yeah, and the buildup, the anticipation.
Ooh,
There's
yeah.
I felt a lot of nostalgia, like you said, just m remembering what it was like to be a kid, to look forward to, oh, this is the last week I get to go do this thing next and all that.
Mm,
And just feeling the excitement, you know. The adulting side of that is planning and reservations and
mm,
all the things. Um, the mindful part of that is not over planning and putting too much stuff on the agenda, just letting ourselves be free, because that's actually what vacation is. Vacate. Don't don't work somewhere else.
do
Doing other
less.
activities. But yeah, I definitely felt a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think having a toddler with us, our toddler, helped to have she just so easily plays, right? Like that's like her way of learning and her language. And so just like running into the waves and building a castle where it's hard not to get caught up in that too. And so it's like, yeah, I'll sit here in the water and get sand all up my swimsuit and build the sand castle with you for an hour. And it's just, I don't know, easier, I think, to invite that playfulness and that curiosity and that exploration when you kind of look through it through a child lens or through that kind of mindset of like, okay, what is that child part of me wanting to do or would it do and kind of lean into that and not have okay, well, I don't want to do that because I'm going to get sticky or hot or that sandy, and just kind of I don't know. I want to say go with the flow, but I don't know if that's the best way to say it. But just play and
Yeah.
kind
Just
of, yeah, be curious and know that it'll be okay. I said a lot of like, it's okay. We're at the beach. It's hot and you're sandy and wet and like, we'll get clean. Like something else will come. We are not stuck in this forever.
We're
yeah, it's
talking to
almost
ourselves as much as our kid.
yes, yeah, it's almost as if like as we become adults, we get a little bit more thinky and a little less like feely. So when we're kids, we're just kind of like everything's just an experience. It's not like you're not not necessarily planning anything out or like overthinking anything. You're really just kind of like I'm playing, right? And Patrick, you mentioned the definition of play. Can you say that again?
Yeah, it's well, by definition, it's unproductive. Like it can be structured, but it's intended to be intrinsically motivated fun that is not productive.
Yeah, so it's like you don't have necessarily a goal. The goal is just to be and to have fun,
Right.
which is so cool. And I have a question for you adults. Um, so as Patrick, you were talking about the anticipation of the vacation, the like excited part. Can you can you kind of find that in your body? Like, how does that feel in your body?
Yeah. So it's kind of it's a warm energy ball right here in the chest. Um, when I start to live there, it's nervousness, it's anxiety, it's anticipatory anxiety of like the jitters. But
Mm.
when I can just notice it being there, it gets to still be excitement for me because I know it's something approaching that I can look forward to and then come back to
Yeah.
where I am and what I'm doing.
Yeah. And then Megan, for you, when you were saying kind of like when you were kind of feeling that flow or like in play, can you describe what that feels like in your body?
Hmm. I think kind of that Yeah, kind of that energy. I'm trying to like, I feel it's like a movement kind of throughout that. Um, yeah, just, yeah, it's got to come out some way in some kind of form of play. I think that's kind
Yeah.
of where I'm noticing that now that I'm thinking through that.
It's kind of like bouncy. Maybe some people
Mhm.
like dance, maybe some people skip, or maybe it's like just it's just like a more fluid state of being in our bodies, I think,
Mhm.
when we're so connected to that sense of childlike wonder, and that's such a deeper, subtle part of ourselves that I think gets buried a lot as adults because we have so much on our plates, we have so many adulting things to do. But when we are really feeling that flow, we really start to like just be really embodied, and that's sometimes brings out the joy parts of it, and sometimes also lets us know that there's something that needs a little bit more attention, maybe something that doesn't feel as good. But that's kind of the part of growing into our lives is holding both, right? Holding both our joy and, our sorrows or our griefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to like multiplicity, like embracing it and not, we don't want to get stuck in any one particular part. We have lots of parts and there are no bad parts. We just, you know, we listen to and embrace the parts that are getting activated. I wonder what that's about. We're allowing ourselves to be curious. And
Mhm.
I know for me, and then, some of the studies, particularly in IFS or parts work, is um, that's when we start to experience stress, right? So when a protector part, or, for some people, it might be an adult part comes in and starts to assign stress or anticipation or the consequence of heat or, whatever, I think that's what pulls us out. Because, all right, a great example, sunscreen. I have never met a kid that likes sunscreen. Ours, one of those kids who hates sunscreen, but it's interrupting, right? So that's the adult part of us, or the, can be present. That also requires presence. So we
Mhm.
need to be here. We need to understand in order to not have a painful consequence. We have to reapply sunscreen. It's a 5 to 10 second activity that interrupts something. We can be present rather than getting stuck in like, oh no, this is over, and then go right back into like the playfulness. So we're
Right.
doing this so that we can play. I think that's a good example of balance.
Yeah. Yeah, and you see that in kids like how quickly they rebound sometimes. So like they're frustrated while you're doing the sunscreen, but all of a sudden when they get to return to play, it's like they're like I'm gonna use the Ted Lasso reference of like be a goldfish. It's like they forgot all of that worry, they forgot all of that like stress of having to be slathered in sunscreen to return to play. So it's like that didn't even exist anymore. So I think that's one of the ways that we can it's a simple saying, but it's not always a simple thing to do to kind of like put our worries aside and allow ourselves to be playful, and to kind of forget about the stuff. It's not necessarily like we're forgetting the hard things that we experience or that we have to go through. It's more so that we are not grasping onto them. We're allowing ourselves to learn from them and to not let them dictate every step we take from then on. So I think that's kind of a helpful thing to remember is like, yes, you can be a goldfish, but you're not necessarily always going to forget everything that happened in the past. But it can inform how you move forward and help you take lighter steps as you take your next steps into whatever you're working on or whatever path your life is taking.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
We saw an awful lot of Lion King on our time away. And that's the other thing is like you can see the polar opposites, right? You can see the being stuck in misery, being stuck in how awful something is, and then you can also see the other side, which is avoidance.
Mm.
Their interpretation of Hakuna Matata, don't worry about it, forget all about it, and then we see the consequence, right? So I think, yeah, there's a constant movement. And I think, the theme of this season is flow. So we're in that state where we're not having to just put all of our energy into getting somewhere. We are here. Let's be
Mm.
here. Doesn't mean we aren't going to experience difficulty. We have plenty of challenges on this vacation, but it's not letting it steal the vacation from us, just being in it.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think too sometimes, Amanda, I know you mentioned kind of that like using the past, right, that can inform the present or whatnot. I think too the I notice myself kind of sometimes getting caught in the next thing or like, oh, I also do this and we have to start this. And I noticed it was like day two of vacation now. I was already thinking like, oh, it's over. You know, like we're not gonna have enough time for this or that or yeah, just kind of thinking too far ahead and then being sad. It's like I've been looking forward to this for so long and then, soon into it being sad that it's over. It's like, well, it hasn't even started. So I think it was something I was able to recognize, right? And kind of like, okay, how can I be mindful in that and kind of come back to the present. But I think with holidays, a lot of the times that can happen, right? Sometimes
Mm.
when we're so looking forward to something, it's hard to be in it because we're already like, oh, it's going to be gone soon or it's going to end, and kind of just that anticipatory grief, I guess, kind of looking already to the end when it's not even there yet.
So how would you say you kind of like drummed up your curiosity to come back to the present and not think about the end so quickly?
Yeah, I'm going to call it my toddler brain. I don't know that I do think kids can really help with that, right? Because you have to be like, okay, what does need to get, maybe you're caring for someone else. But I think that like, okay, reminder of that will come when it comes, but I can be here now. And I think that's kind of like the mantra that I kept having for myself of like, be here now. Like this, like this can be fun. This is fun. Enjoying what's in front of me instead of kind of getting caught up to the next part.
Yeah.
It might be helpful for people to hear how you embody that. Like how do you bring that into your body and like be here and feel actually what does that mean? Be here for you.
Good point. I purposely focus my attention on like the task or the thing happening. It can be helpful for me to like notice, okay, like where I am, like visually surroundings or like feeling my feet on the ground, kind of that the classic, five senses type thing. I don't necessarily like five things I can see, four I can smell. I don't necessarily like always go through that, but I think some of those things of like, okay, like what's here, a deep breath, just kind of that like reset, and kind of come back to like, okay, this is here now, and then yeah, focus on that.
I like how you used like you called it your toddler brain, which I think is very like relative to maybe some people use as like the inner child part of their selves, and that's something that I use often to help myself remember that I can still play. Like I am an adult, but I can still play. So like my inner child, I just remember, it's that nostalgia feeling of like what do I remember loving to do as a kid, and try to do something like that as an adult. And like for me, it's like sometimes playing dress up or like playing in the rain or playing with bubbles. I was very much like a summer kid. I loved everything outside in the summer. As an adult, it's a little bit hot sometimes, so I gotta find some indoor activities. But it's kind of like when I find myself doing those things that like my younger self, the younger version of myself, loved to do, I feel so um I feel so like free. I feel so carefree almost. Like yes, I still have like the adult side of me and I can schedule my day so that I have like my adult time and then like my like kid playtime, right? So when I am in that state of play, it's like I'm dancing. I feel so much more connected to my whole self, not just like who I want to be in the future or like my goal self or like, what I'm working towards, but who I am, who I've been. And I feel very confident and I feel very, just in a flow state, like you were talking about in that flow aspect of the season. So I wonder like kind of what things you guys get into or what you might encourage your clients to get into to kind of feel that full essence or to find out different parts of themselves that they can access to kind of guide them there.
Well, I've heard some words that like curiosity, confidence, those are two of the C's in like self energy and Dick Schwartz's IFS. It's that's how we know we're connected to self. And the beauty of that is that, we can be aware of a part, and like if that part needs to be in charge, then we can allow it to have more energy. Um, and so that's how I work with clients is, let's be curious about the part that's activated.
Mm.
Um, is it is it taking you away from what's happening? Is it rigidly here? So that's another form of rigid attachment that a lot of people don't consider as attachment is, I'm so zenned out, I'm so comfortable, I feel so great, I don't want this to end. So there's an avoidance that happens. And, we can be rigidly attached to unattachment,
Mm.
where we don't want to attach to something, so we avoid it. Like what you were saying of like, I can do the adult things and I can move into having fun and being childlike. And if I need to move back into adult things,
Mm.
example of that is for anybody who's coming up on a vacation, sometimes you have to eat. So if you're, having fun or doing whatever, there's a moving into, okay, well, now I need to take care of myself. And then moving back into
Mm.
whatever else comes next, not having such rigid or compartmentalized. We're really sold that compartmentalization is necessary for success. And that is the one of the biggest myths. We we're not effective at compartmentalizing. We don't have cement walls between all of our parts of ourselves or our lives. What we do is we get better at moving between them without the static or the rigidity.
Yeah. I do think there's a way to also like integrate them in maybe more um subtle ways, but whether you put on your favorite like music from your childhood while you're driving to your next work occasion or whatever, and you kind of have like a little dance party or a little car time karaoke, right? Or maybe it's with your style. Maybe you add in a little bit of color or playfulness to the accessories that you're wearing, or there's ways to, I feel like, bring in both at the same time, kind of this sounds silly, but like to make your life more like whimsical, right? To bring the magic of your child playfulness into your adult realm, and like toddler brain and adult brain can kind of like work together sometimes in that way.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and Amanda, I like what you're saying about like what did I like as a child? No, what was fun? I think sometimes too, I notice clients like lose a lot of connection with that part. And so it's like, I don't even know what I used to do. Like maybe like it's hard for people to reconnect with things that bring them joy or things that used to bring them joy. So I think that's something for the mindful making this month, some ideas of just like how, like you were saying, right? That like I love the car time karaoke. I'm gonna add that to the list. But like how do we give ourselves those little moments of play and like actually do it and see like what was that like? And I think that invites that curiosity of like, did I enjoy that? Or was there a part of me that was like, stop it, you're being silly, like kind of
Mhm.
see for yourself, like, okay, but can it be fun? Or try to reconnect with some of those things you liked as a kid, whether it's I'm gonna, go to Dollar Tree and pick out a craft to do, something doesn't have to be expensive. But I think art in general can really activate that curiosity piece and the kind of that playfulness. And it's just watercolors can be really great for that, but any art supply, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm just playing around with color and mark making and seeing like what happens when I overlap these shapes or when this happens or when that or what about these lines. So just kind of that like playfulness in that way of that like what happens when and just kind of keep going and see what happens. And I think, or crayons, right? I think crayons can especially just automatically transport us back to being a
Mhm.
kid, and kind of playing with even just like the smell of the wax. Like if you haven't done anything with crayons in a long time, just like, go buy a set, and notice the texture of it, the smell of it, the feel. It definitely kind of just automatically brings out that child part of us.
Yeah, and I love like the aspect of like the sensory experience of it because our senses are the strongest ties to our memories. So like even if you don't remember what you liked as a kid, that smell again might transport you back into that playtime. And I think one of the meditation that we'll do this month also is kind of allowing yourself to kind of travel back in time, not necessarily with the senses, but just kind of regain access to that part of yourself, the inner child part, which I think will be really, really cool to experience for some of us that might have a harder time remembering.
Yeah, I would add too, if if you do notice that there's a part trying to pull you away, like I shouldn't be doing this or that's silly or whatever those judgments are, if there's a should or a label assigned to what you're doing, it's probably a part of you who is pulling you away. There's an opportunity there to be curious. What is this part trying to keep me from or protect me from? And that was something we talked about earlier of before we were recording is many adults learn how to have fun or play or give themselves freedom through dissociation. We need a substance to
Mm,
help us do that, or binge watching something. We need something external or altering that
mm,
gives us permission to do that. It's really not permission, it forces us there. It's 100% effective. And that's something my clients and I work on is, these substances are 100% effective 100% of the time at helping us dissociate, numb, but we don't actually need them. We just need the permission. Permission is permissive. It comes from within. It's not external. So I wonder, we've talked about some of the things that we're going to invite folks to participate in this month as we get into the flow and like embrace the flow. So, as your curiosity is increasing, it's something we've been working on, and that confidence and compassion, particularly self-compassion, the path back. I think that's something to notice is when you're pulled away, that's not the time to beat yourself up or judge or anything like that. If you've been doing anything on the path, you've experienced meditation. So it's far less about staying in a mindful state and recognizing when your brain is doing something else.
mm,
It's when you're pulled away from the point of focus. Is that something I want to focus on or need to focus on? Well, if it isn't, it's the journey back. That gentle, compassionate, curious place. Which, Megan, you were talking about just how that seems to be so natural for children and just watching our daughter do that of, you know, ooh, that seems interesting and not assigning a label to it, and
mm.
putting some medication on it. Yeah, we can move from thing to thing in a very appropriate way that's not pathological.
Yeah, and I was just sitting here thinking of like I've got a cup of coffee and I'm like, I wish I could just like IV that into me to get a boost of energy. And so there's that external pull in of something, but what if I were to like get up and do like some jumping jacks or just to like wiggle or bounce in my body and stimulate that energy from like my internal pharmacy, if you will, like that all of that is within. I don't necessarily need the external stimulant, but like I can boost it myself through being in my body and being a little bit more playful and less rigid, right? And less like I have to do this because this is the thing that's going to give me the feeling that I want, but instead it could be something a little bit more loose or a little less like I don't know, that like adult brain that's like we need this thing to do this thing to like the productive sense of ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm also thinking as you're saying that like routine, right? Like I wake up, I have my coffee, I do this, and then I need to do this,
Yeah.
and then there's this, where it's not as much of a flow. Well, like I
Hmm.
enjoy routine, but to your point of like maybe I don't need the coffee, maybe I can do jumping jack, right? Are there other ways to
Yeah.
try or be curious or playful and like how I do something?
Yes.
I'm thinking of like cleaning, right? Like I don't like cleaning. We like washing the windows. I remember touring a Montessori school. Um, a few years ago for our daughter, and like they had some of the kids out front, in front of the room, like, the little squeegees and the like cleaning the windows. And I'm like, okay, child labor, right? And they're like, yeah, like we're learning hand-eye coordination and large motor movements and the sense of responsibility. And, they're like, sponge, and they're having a blast where it's like, wait, that's work, not play. So kind of redefining like, can work be play and play be work?
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm thinking, even as I look out this window, like, okay, like, could that, or how do you make that fun? And that's really my own mindset around that of like, if I'm like, oh, I have to clean the window and it's work and it's a chore, then that's how it's going to be. But is there another way to kind of approach that or do that that kind of makes it more playful or less worky, even if it is still kind
Mhm.
of work?
Yeah.
I like to think of it as rhythm
Mm.
instead of routine. The
Mm.
purpose of a routine is so that we don't have to pay attention to all things all the time. We can put some things in the background. But then we get, again, back to that rigid attachment. We get so attached to having to do the thing. Um, Also, a childlike part. If you pull me out of my thing that I'm expecting next, I might flip out on you. Um, but instead of like judging ourselves or others for doing that, we get to be curious. What age is that part that I'm watching this 45-year-old person engage in right now, or this 80-year-old person, or whatever, rather than be like, they're so childish. It's like we can be curious. There is a very young part activated right now. What is that about? And it unburdens us from having to take ownership of somebody else's experience. Just let it be theirs.
Mhm.
But that's what I'm thinking about when you were just talking, or both of you, is just how quickly something can just we can just attach to it and need it to be this thing and then this thing and then this thing and this thing. But a rhythm, I like to talk to my clients about jazz. Even if they don't know what jazz is, they've probably heard it at some point or assume what it means. I mean, I know this is your absolute favorite, Megan, sarcasm implied, of like going off on like a 15-minute improvisation and then finding your way back. And it's rhythm, right? It flows, it sounds good. Well, it sounds good to me. I don't know if everybody enjoys it, but it makes sense, right? They're all in sync and then they find their way back. It's not rigid. We're like, okay, this is done. Kind of like classical music. Well, this is done, and we're now going to move on to the next thing, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And even like considering like most adults have been out of town, like they've gone on some sort of like vacation or like some kind of excursion where you kind of get out of your routine and you're kind of doing something else. And sometimes that requires a lot of planning. And then you get to the vacation and there's so much going on that you like didn't have enough time to do all the things that you planned for. So then you're frustrated, right? We talked about this. So I think something about this month or this season, we can try to do it differently, right? So like you said, do be more mindful in the planning stage to leave enough space for spontaneity, for being, right? To just be there and not have to like do everything or plan every minute of the day out. Um, so I think, how would I'm trying to think of like what other aspects of life we could bring this into, but like how to do our routine a little bit differently so that it feels more like a rhythm and there's spaciousness for the rhythm to maybe take us on this jam or maybe take us on this jam, right? So like kind of allowing ourselves to flow with that rhythm wherever it may take us.
Yeah, I think was it y'all might need to help me. Was it January, or February where we talked more about like intentions versus goals? Kind of
Mm,
Mhm.
like larger, okay, this is what I want out of this, as opposed to like, this is how it has to be done. So I think putting that in the framework of vacation, just because it's kind of easy to like conceptualize the, intention of, okay, I want to relax, I want to play at the beach, I want to eat good seafood. Like what are these kind of like broader intentions of time or some things, as opposed to like, okay, Monday, we're gonna eat at 10, we're gonna go here, and then we have to be here, kind of like so planned. I think of the like more planning and packed kind of, I think more of that like goal type thinking, right? Where intentions are more broader, kind of gives more of that rhythm, that kind of looser experience of like, okay, let's see where this goes. And maybe it's, oh, we happen to be downtown and find this little seafood shack, as opposed to like, I have to go to this one at this time.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if that kind of goes with the answer a little bit, but yeah, I think kind of that, I want to say like broader mindset, right? More of that intention type kind of lens to
Yeah.
things.
And it prioritizes what you want to experience, not
Mhm.
it doesn't
Wow.
dictate your schedule, like your
Mhm.
time and your energy. It just prioritizes what you want to experience. So like you don't have to have those like those set times, those blocks of times to do each thing, which I think is really, really a smart and important thing to do is to kind of think like, I want to do this and I want to do this, and that's all I care about. Everything else can just be blank
Right.
space.
So same with like morning coffee, right? If I want to wake up and kind of start to feel energized, right? I think that would be the point of coffee. Like, how do I do that? Maybe it's coffee, maybe it's a tea, maybe I haven't tried them, but like the mushroom coffee type thing, is there something else that can like give the energy, or am I doing jumping jacks? Am I going to put on my favorite song and kind of wiggle around, like what, or stretching. Are there other ways? So I think some of it takes some pre-planning, right? To think about like, okay, what could this look like? And then trying it and maybe like, oh, I really enjoyed stretching and like that gave me energy.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, kind of that like, here's my intention for that time. What's maybe a different way I can accomplish that?
I love that.
Yeah, and thinking of these things as options, I think that's part of how we get the rhythm rather than routine. Like we've had lots of wonderful experiences. We've had this coffee that's amazing. I have to have that coffee. No, again, like you said, it's coming back to embodying oh, I want to feel energized.
Yeah.
That's what I'm actually prioritizing, not this cup of coffee from this place on the way to work. What if I hit traffic? Or, there's just so many things that come up. And I
Mhm.
think that's what bogs us down. That's where our attachments are and where we get stressed. Like I have to hit all these things rather than, oh, I have all these things as options. What am I feeling right now? And I hear myself. I understand not everybody, we can't always live in this like free flow.
Right.
But we could live it in a lot more than we do. We just have this misconception that we're going to do something wrong or going to get in trouble.
And I think it's a little bit of like rewiring ourselves and our habits a little bit because we do live in a society where like a lot of our dopamine comes from like not dopamine sustaining things, right? So like
Mhm.
going to your favorite coffee shop to get that one cup of coffee, and if you don't get it, then your day is like destroyed, right? But playfulness and exercise and like all of this kind of stuff is actually naturally boosting the dopamine in your body that you have control of, you have access to, right? So it's not just this quick, like instant gratification. Sometimes there is a little bit of planning to say, like, if I make a playlist, these are all my favorite songs to bounce around to. And then each morning I'm just going to hit shuffle and I'm going to like have my coffee and do a little like bouncing around for one song, even if it's just for one song, right? That can naturally boost your dopamine instead of chasing it through something external again. Yeah.
Great point. Yeah. And to add to that, novelty also boosts dopamine.
Yeah.
So if we're busy doing all the things that we know we like all the time, then we never have room for new experiences.
Right.
So yeah, I think all these are great, tips and ideas to consider. Just want to encourage everybody, don't use this as a compartment to now like I have to go make sure I try all these things. It's
Right.
more about feeling your experience. What am I feeling like right now? Do I need to do this? And quite honestly, if we did that, we probably wouldn't skip lunch. We wouldn't skip breakfast. We wouldn't be, blaring through whatever it is in order to get to the next thing. We're paying attention to what our bodies are communicating.
Yeah. Yeah, I think these practices this month will be hopefully pretty helpful and really kind of stimulating that more playful sense that we do have within all of us, and sometimes just need a little bit of assistance bringing it out. And so hopefully we can help you all with that this month. I think that's all we have, unless you two will have anything else you want to add.
Just give yourself a permission and opportunity to have some fun.
Yeah.
Maybe even today.
Yeah.
Why not?
Be silly. I encourage everyone that I work with to like shake and wiggle and just like be a little like silly, loosey-goosey all the time. And it's really awesome to see that people just really embody that. So go wiggle, shake, and we'll see you this every Monday for a new practice throughout the rest of this month.